Solo, a Star Wars story. This is a movie that exists, I guess. Probably the most unnecessary Star Wars film ever made. That said, I kinda liked it. It has a lot of problems. It has a ton of problems. But Solo's not nearly as bad as it should be given all of the behind the scenes nonsense, the fact that the movie was basically reshot and they shot the entire movie twice, the fact that its lead actor had to take 2 weeks off for acting lessons after filming started. That all said, it's not terrible. No, as I said, it's not great. There are pacing problems. Actually, probably the worst is there are major pacing problems. I don't know how much of Lord and Miller's version survived into this, but they are not credited as directors. This is solo Ron Howard for credit. The Lord and Miller version, I wager, was quite different. To the movie's credit, I can't tell what might have been Lord and Miller and what might have been Ron Howard. So at least they did match the tone between everything. But Solo, it wasn't too bad. And in all honesty, it was kind of refreshing to have a Star Wars movie that was about what could technically be called meaningless shit. This one wasn't about Death Stars or the Skywalker family or the fate of the galaxy or the Force or any of that. It was kind of nice to just have a Star Wars movie that was a space adventure, that was sort of a Western in space, kind of like what the first film at least tonally tried to do. This isn't terrible. Like I said, the pacing is bad. The pacing is terrible. I think this movie needed another editor to go over it with clean eyes. There's easily 20 minutes that could have been taken out of this movie, and a few scenes could have drastically been shortened because they just kind of kept going on. The atmosphere is right. I think the movie felt right. It felt like what a Star Wars movie should feel like. It felt dirty. It felt grimy. As I said before, it kind of had a space western vibe to it with the whole ripping off gangsters and all that. And with all the behind the scenes nonsense, I really, really expected to hate Alden Ehrenreich in this. Because in the early trailers, I didn't like some of his line deliveries, and he's not perfect in this. And the fact that he had to take acting lessons while they were shooting the movie, he's actually quite good in this. I thought he had decent charisma. I thought he had the smugness of young Han Solo downright. I actually thought Alden was not terrible in this role. Now, he's not stunning in the role either. You can tell that this is someone early in their acting career. He was not the disaster I was expecting. And that was kind of a pleasant surprise. When it comes down to acting, honestly, Emilia Clarke was the worst. I thought Cora was bland and lifeless and boring, and she rarely had more than 2 expressions throughout the whole movie. She was awful. Donald Glover, okay, I don't like his This Is America music video. I think it's pompous shit, but he was great as Lando. He was charismatic, he was arrogant, he was funny. Okay, I had no problem with Donald Glover as Lando. This Star Wars movie, I don't know if I want to say it went to a dark place, but there were 2 things that were just quick mentions in this movie that I was thinking, okay, I never thought I'd see that in a Star Wars movie, and that is sex with the robots, between robots and biologicals, and castration of slaves. Yes, they make sense in the context of both where they're put, just never thought the Star Wars universe needed those things. It was kind of interesting to see some of the inner workings of like the day-to-day Empire without, Vader and Tarkin and all that. It was kind of interesting to see like, the rank and file stormtroopers and ground troops and pilots. I don't know if this was something they intended to do. There was always that old plot hole of I did the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs. Well, a parsec is a measurement of distance and not a measurement of time. So that was always a plot hole. This actually kind of plugs that plot hole because Solo actually cheated on what the 20 parsec route was supposed to be, and he did it in 12 because he cheated and did something he shouldn't have been able to be possible to do. In a way, it even plugs that plot hole. Is that what we're doing now? Are we making whole movies plug plot holes like this plugs that plot hole up? Rogue One was all about to plug the plot hole of the exhaust port. Is that what all the Star Wars side movies are going to be now? Going, well, there's some plot holes, we need to deal with this. The only thing that really drug this movie down for me, not counting the pacing issues, but of the story, was the L3 robot. Not the character itself, but the L3 robot is such a Kathleen Kennedy SJW fucking insert. It's ridiculous. The robot is constantly complaining about getting equal rights as humans. She starts a revolution and then is all happy and she's, equal rights and that's racist against robots and you shouldn't be being used like this to droids. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm not saying that's a bad thing because everything L3 was saying are things that needed to be said. They just don't need to be said in a Star Wars heist movie. This is, Kathleen Kennedy, remember, proudly wears her t-shirt, "The Force is female," and The Last Jedi had so much SJW bullshit inserted into it. You can see Kathleen Kennedy was like, no, we need a vaguely gender-neutral robot that's going to speak to the lefties out there to counteract the Empire, and it's like, oh, come on. That really bugged me. Like I said, not the L3 character itself, but the fact that it's a straw man for SJW bullshit. And again, that doesn't mean what L3 was saying does not need to be said, because I do agree in equal rights and things like that. I just don't know if this was the right place for that. It felt really out of place. And again, she hints at maybe sex with Lando, and that's kind of creepy. So Solo, it's not the train wreck we all thought it was going to be, and by all rights it should have been, based on everything that happened. Is it the best Star Wars movie? No, not by a long shot. But it's also not the worst Star Wars movie, Last Jedi. So, Solo, I didn't mind it. And I know that's gonna shock anyone who's ever listened to me before.